Aquaman and the Lost Cause. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Yeah, this one was supposedly directed by James Wan. It stars Jason Momoa, Patrick Wilson, Yahya, Abdul-Mateen. And this is the end of the DC Extended Universe. The DCEU. You were great to me for about a decade, and now it's just kinda bleh. So after failing to defeat Aquaman the first time, Black Manta wields the power of the mythic Black Trident to unleash an ancient and malevolent force. Hoping to end his reign of terror, Aquaman forges an unlikely alliance with his brother Orm, the former king of Atlantis. So setting aside their differences, this bromance joins forces to protect their kingdom and save the world from irreversible destruction. Now look, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like I didn't enjoy some facets of the DCEU. Like, it has given us a lot of really good movies in the past. I can think of at least a half dozen off the top of my head. But for every good thing that the DCEU did, there was always some piece of to come along and just completely change people's view of this franchise. And now we have the movie that I'm sure Warner Brothers did not want to end this universe on. But with James Gunn and his team taking over the DC properties in 2025, starting with Superman Legacy, they did the right thing to wrap all this up. And honestly, going to this theater today felt like going to a funeral. And it felt like going to a funeral for that estranged cousin that nobody in your family wanted to talk about, because the DC Extended Universe has really hit a wall. This theater was practically empty when I went today, because I'm sure most people like myself are just ready to move on, and we're just ready to see what James Gunn is going to do with this universe. So I was at least hopeful. I was hopeful that Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom would be somewhat entertaining. And yeah, it really wasn't, guys. Unfortunately, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom kind of sucked. Not kind of sucked, it did suck. The only real good thing I can say about this movie is that there's one action sequence on a desert that I found slightly entertaining. Jason Momoa was doing all he could with this material in the dumpster fire that it was. But man, not even his charm and the fact that he's like the long-lost member of the Bloodline stable, like... oh boy. And some can say that Patrick Wilson is a lot more interesting in this movie than he was in the first Aquaman, which I actually didn't mind. That movie I thought was a lot of fun. But this was the Lost Kingdom's ultimate downfall. This movie was supposed to be released last year. This was supposed to be the big heavyweight comic book movie to go up against Avatar: The Way of Water at the box office, which it would have inevitably lost. Definitely would have lost that battle financially. And some people might go on record and say that that's the reason why they pushed this movie back a year. But, you know, with a certain someone being involved in this movie and the legal issues they're going through, I think we know the real reason. And listen, this studio absolutely did the right thing going through the reshoots, because Amber Heard is a horrible human being. And yeah, she is in this movie, definitely. It's not for very long. You definitely get small glimpses of her. But thankfully, her relationship with Arthur Curry is not what this movie is about at all. And everybody who hates Amber Heard will be happy to know that she is terrible in this movie. Matter of fact, aside from Momoa and aside from Wilson, all the performances really left a lot to be desired. Nicole Kidman was reading off her lines like she wishes she was watching this movie from an AMC instead. It's good to see Dolph Lundgren on screen again, especially given his health problems. And I'm glad that he's doing a big project like this to kind of get some money back in his bank account. Randall Park is in this movie. Isn't being a part of Marvel Studios enough and satisfying enough for him? And my god, our villain, Yahya Abdul-Mateen, plays Black Manta here. And listen, this is a very, very talented actor. Like, literally one of the best of this generation. He is that damn good. But the cheesy dialogue that he's given and the overall hollow nature of his backstory, it's not that the backstory is terrible or anything, and the fact that it links up to the first movie, I'll give the movie credit at least for that. But I wanted more of him. I wanted this movie to treat him like he was a legitimate threat. But no, we basically have to establish this bigger, gigantic monster threat aside from him. Because I don't know, I guess they felt this movie needed more stakes. Jesus Christ, this movie was a mess, guys. There's 4 credited writers on this thing, Jason Momoa included in that quartet. And the end result of all these reshoots and all these writers coming in to try and salvage what was a controversial project going in, like, unfortunately, it doesn't turn out to be an ultimate disaster. Like, this isn't the worst comic book movie I've ever seen in my life. But this is definitely bottom of the barrel. There are so many plot lines that lead to nothing, like Arthur and his fatherhood. His relationship with his infant son goes absolutely nowhere. And my god, I mean, at least Warner Brothers was reshooting to kind of mask the fact that Amber Heard was in this movie. But there were points, I'm not saying that her involvement would have improved this movie at all. Don't get it twisted. The studio absolutely did the right thing excluding her for the most part. But there's a lot of sequences where a love interest for Aquaman would have definitely made the movie feel a lot more emotionally, like, resonant. Christ almighty, guys. And here's the big thing. I feel like The Lost Kingdom absolutely encapsulates everything that was wrong with the DCEU. Because in terms of business and competition, who is their biggest rival in terms of just big box office comic book movies? If you said Marvel Studios, ding, 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 you're correct. I feel like the biggest downfall of the DCEU was ultimately them rushing all these little tidbits here and there just so they can compete with Marvel. Remember Batman v Superman and that whole little sequence of emails where the Justice League was practically just set up? Like, you need a few movies of build-up to actually warrant a giant team-up movie like that. But because the Avengers was doing so well, the studio basically had to hop on the bandwagon, and they were like, okay, we gotta put out the Justice League as fast as possible. Okay? No, I don't care about stories, Zack Snyder. You gotta put out Justice League right now. Now, I don't want to get too deep into spoilers, but there were a few pieces of dialogue in here where they were kind of subtly admitting that they were copying the Marvel formula. Because this brotherhood and this relationship, it very much feels like they were trying to copy off of the Thor and Loki formula that worked so well in Ragnarok. So much so that Arthur Curry actually calls Orm Loki at one point. Like, are you kidding me? So they're basically admitting that they were copying off of Marvel. Don't believe me? Just look at The Flash. I mean, that's a fun movie, but they were basically taking the idea of the multiverse that Marvel is doing literally right now, and they're putting it into DC characters. Like, I don't know how much more proof you need that these guys were copycatting. Yeah, thankfully, this universe is being put to rest. The Lost Kingdom is absolutely the lost cause of the year, even though there are a couple of slight glimmers of hope in there in the performances of our 2 leading men. This movie felt emotionally hollow, the plot lines went absolutely nowhere, and my god, don't even get me started on the CGI, because it looked as fake as you can get. And for a movie that cost over $200 million to make, the fact that the CG looks this bad, that is absolutely unacceptable in this day and age. I hated this movie. What more can I say? I'm gonna give Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom a D-. Yeah, not good at all. There's definitely better holiday movies that you can go out of your way to see with your families. Like, go watch Wonka. Go watch The Iron Claw. Those movies deserve your money. Let me know what you thought of Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom down in the comments section below. And let me know if you have any parting words for the DCEU down in the comments. What was your favorite projects to come out of the DCEU? Because like I mentioned, they have put out a bunch of good movies in the past. But this movie just leaves you a sour taste in the mouth, and it just kind of like... Yeah, I'm ready for James Gunn. I'm ready for him to take over. Because at least with him at the helm, I know these characters are going to be in good hands. But if you guys like discussing comic book movies and movies in general, this is a great community to be a part of. So do consider subscribing today. Tap on that thumbs up as well. That would be a humongous help. And stay tuned for more videos to come as we close out this very exciting 2023 in entertainment. Look out for my best and worst movies of the year countdown very, very soon. Along with a whole lot more as we ring in 2024. That rhymed. Unintentionally. But guys, y'all are the best. And with all that being said, Back Talk, commence.